Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Live with Liz. And today we are back in Greenville. We have with us Eric, who's the production manager, and Escar, a CNC technician at Timberlab. And Timberlab is a mass timber production facility. And that's a very interesting job that they're doing here. Y'all can't see it, but there is timber all over the place. So let's just start first with asking Eric, what is mass timber? Get the very first question out of the way.
Yeah, thanks Liz, and thanks for a chance to be on your show. Mass timber is a brand new building material that's being used all over the construction industry now. It's really emerging as a more sustainable, environmentally friendly, and expedient building material. Timberlab provides really cradle-to-grave mass timber services for general contractors who are interested in using it. You guys have probably seen mass timber in large structures like airports or maybe civic buildings of different types. Picture like very large wooden columns or beams that are absolutely beautiful. They draw your eye. And we call this material glue lam, or glue laminated timber. It's primarily what we fabricate here in the southeast, or the Greenville fabrication plant for Timberlab.
Very good. Thanks so much for breaking that down a little bit for us so we have a better understanding of everything Timberlab is doing here in the local area. So let's just step back a little bit and first start with what brought Timberlab to Greenville. What's the company background and why are we here in Greenville today?
Sure, thanks. Maybe you haven't heard of Timberlab. It's our main office is in Portland, Oregon. We spun off of a parent company called Swinnerton, which is a very large, very successful general contractor with a great reputation. A lot more on the West Coast or in the Midwest, but they also are expanding here in the Southeast too. And about 5 years ago, Swinnerton realized that mass timber is really growing as a sector of the construction market. It's really increasing, what we've heard about 20% year after year. And so they created a new division within Swinnerton called Swinnerton Mass Timber. Well, 2 years ago, the company made a decision just to have because mass timber is very difficult to deliver across the lifespan of construction, it really deserves its own company, its own leadership, to vertically integrate all the pieces that are required for mass timber. So 2 years ago, Timberlab was created and founded, and we have our own tax identification number. We've only been around for a little over 2 years now, and so we still have that startup feel. It's still kind of scrappy. We're still lean and mean, like a lot of startups are. But we have this benefit of being still under the umbrella of a very stable, very established, larger company, which we think is a very attractive aspect of this.
Absolutely.
What brought us to Greenville, again, established more in the Pacific Northwest. Douglas fir is the wood that's dominant up there, and a lot of our clients prefer that. But what is happening in the natural resource that we've had for a very long time in the United States, in the Southeast, is southern yellow pine. And so Timberlab realized that to take advantage of the southern yellow pine fiber basket, really here in South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Arkansas, we need to have a fabrication plant, have a footprint here in the Southeast. That's one major driver, and the other is the strong labor market here. I mean, we have just excellent reputation in South Carolina for manufacturing and for tradespeople who really know how to work, and we have found that to be true in the 6 months that we've been established here in Greenville.
That's awesome. That's so great to hear, and Greenville itself is a beautiful county. I think I said that the last time we were here. I love when I get to come up here and visit to do this or anything, just be in the area because it's so pretty here. But there's a lot of, and I'm glad you mentioned this, a lot of background experience with manufacturing in South Carolina that's pretty well known. And there is tons of opportunity to get that training as well. So if you don't have it, there's the technical colleges and education centers all over the state to get you spun up on the skills you need for the workforce, much like here at Timberlab. So that's really great that you plugged that. You plugged everything. You did a great job.
Done here?
You're done. We're done. You took all my talking points. No, but I did want to go back and ask, what does cradle to grave mean? You mentioned that earlier on, and I wanted you to just touch on that just a little bit. So if I'm not a contractor, what does that mean? I don't know.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I definitely glazed over it. So by cradle to grave services in mass timber, what I mean is we don't build the entire building from scratch. There's a general contractor that, will pour the foundation, do the site work, and then he normally will subcontract out to specialties who do the work. If an owner would like mass timber in their building, then the general contractor would hopefully solicit from Timberlab to manage all of the mass timber components of the building. And so what that would involve is some of the background office work, like providing estimates and consulting on designs. But if we win the project, then we provide all of the design services. We provide the digital construction services, which is building this very sophisticated model on computers. And then what we see here in this facility is the fabrication of those glulam and sometimes CLT, cross-laminated timber members. And then, cherry on top, we then ship the glulam to the construction site where we have a Timberlab crew install that glulam. And so from cradle to grave, we're part of the process. Again, right here in this facility, we're kind of at the the finish line of the what could be 2 to 3 year planning process. And it's, if I can't, forgive me for going on too long, but what I like to say is, although this is a manufacturing setting, we consider ourselves builders because we are part of a construction project, and everything that we do here affects the builders on site.
Yeah.
So we really have that ethos.
I think that's good, and that actually is going to lead really well into my next question. But before I get there, just keep in mind, if you have questions that we're not addressing as we go through, just type those into the comment box, and we'll address them at the very end. So just keep that in the back of your mind as we're going through the rest of this. So what you just said, you envision or feel like you're builders. So that gets right into the workforce question, which is next. So tell me right now, I think you told me right before we started that Timberlab has about 60 to 75 employees across the company.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about that. We know how many you have. Can you tell me if you're currently hiring, what those positions are, a little bit about what kind of training they need, and we'll get into that a little bit more too.
Love to. Okay, so here in the fabrication shop, we have two main lines of work. We have the CNC technicians that run the CNC machine that's standing behind me.
Escar right here.
Escar's
right
next.
here, yeah.
And that is one kind of like category of work that we have here. Another category we have is prefabrication technicians. It's a mouthful. Really, you're a shop carpenter, and you do all the finish work that the CNC cannot do. So these are the two main components, and there's other aspects of work that can be done, but those are the two main categories. The CNC is necessary because these large columns and beams that come into the shop, they need to be cut to very exquisite detail. Very precise measurements need to be made so that when those beams connect, it connects just right, and first time every time, so we don't have to do any fixes on the construction site.
Yeah.
It takes a real good attention to detail, and a person with a kind of a carpenter's mindset, a builder's mindset. Where we at is we got about 15 people in the shop right now, and we will be scaling up, which is why I'm so anxious to talk with you, Liz, because this is just the first of 3 CNCs that we're going to have in this facility. So with the additional CNC machines, we will be multiplying our workforce by that much. All right, so we will be rapidly hiring over the next year if all things continue well as they are right now, and we're just ecstatic about that growth.
That's really exciting. I'm going to keep going with workforce, but before we go on to a couple other questions I have about that, I do want to talk about the CNC machine. And you watching could probably see just a portion of it, but it's massive, and it goes all the way down this way. So we're going to let Escar tell us a little bit about that. What is this machine exact? I know it's a CNC machine, but elaborate a little bit more on what Eric said. What does it do? What's its purpose? And then we can even talk into the skill set you need to run this machine, in addition to the attention to detail, but what kind of training?
Okay, so this machine is our first CNC machine here in Greenville County, and it's a 6-axis CNC machine, which basically means that the spindle head of this machine can rotate on 6 different axes, and which gives us a lot of advantages when it comes to making pockets and slots on our beams. So it could reach, every side on our beams and columns, which prevents fab from having to do it by hand. So it really helps us produce and fabricate these structural beams and columns. And it uses end mills, drills, and the cool tools that we use are chainsaws and huge saw blades, like 350 millimeter diameter saw blades. And it's pretty neat. And it uses the same tools as your regular metal CNC machines, except our tools are a lot larger. We have drills up to like almost 2 feet long, compared to in the metal shop, they're like 2 inches long. So yeah, basically this machine just does all the fabrication, most of the fabrication. That way we prevent from having to do it by hand.
Yeah, which probably saves a lot of time. I'm just guessing it cuts back on time and cost and all of these things. So that's a great explanation for what this is. And I'm sure people that are really familiar with CNC machines are super excited about 6-axis and the big blades and drills and everything else you just mentioned. What kind of training, if somebody's watching this and they're real excited to use this machine, what kind of training or experience would you want them to have, or would you be looking for?
Okay, so basically just any kind of knowledge in machining, and just knowing how to measure, using your measuring tools, especially your tape measure. It's a lot easier with wood here because our tolerances aren't as tight as in the metal shop. So all you have to know really is how to use a tape measure. But yeah, the skills we're looking for is just knowing how to measure, and just more experience with CNC. Or even manual. If you can run a manual machine, you can definitely run a CNC machine. It would be a lot easier for you to learn. So just experience in reading like blueprints and running machines, and maybe using a few hand tools.
Yeah, that's all really good information. The blueprints and all that stuff's good information. So let's pivot back to the workforce questions. Can you tell us a little bit about the benefits?
Okay.
Well, so what are the benefits here at Timberlab? What does that look like?
Yeah, happy to talk about that. I mean, starting salary is somewhere between $17 an hour up to $24 an hour, and that depends on the experience that you come in with.
Sure.
But that's the general range, and it's slightly more for our CNC technicians than for hand fab, but that's just slightly. And then we also have 2 shifts, and so if you're willing to work the evening shift, there's a slight bump up for that too. So that's just basic compensation. What is really attractive, I think, if those numbers don't sound very high to you, it's that we have a very robust benefits package for our craft personnel. I mean, I really have not seen anything that compares as good as far as medical, life insurance, paid time off, all federal holidays are off, paid holidays, and then there's things like parental leave, and we frequently incentivize with other things such as lunches in the shop, and overtime is frequent, so if voluntary overtime.
Yeah.
It is just a good work culture here on top of a robust benefits package. I can tell you that a startup doesn't always have that because you often have to operate very lean. But because we are still under that parental umbrella of Swinnerton, it enables this really strong support network for our employees. So that means strong HR, IT support, the kind of things that just drag on you in a small company. We are a small company, but we have that support, so we really get things done. And I think our employees like working here.
Yeah. So let's go back to the shifts. You mentioned there's 2 shifts.
2 shifts, yes.
And I know you said there's a shift differential, but can you tell us what those shifts are?
Sure. First shift is from 06 to 2:30,
Okay.
so that includes a 30-minute lunch, typical 8-hour shift. And then second shift goes from 2 till 10:30.
Okay.
All right, so 8 hours plus a 30-minute meal time, and allowing for a little bit of overlap.
Yeah, a little bit of overlaps. That's great. You also had mentioned to us that this is also employee-owned.
Oh, yeah.
Which would be, I think, a really good benefit as well. And if you want to elaborate just a little bit on that, too.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. So employee-owned companies is a really attractive thing that I wasn't very tuned into at first, and now I can't imagine it being different. It means that all the profits that are made by Swinnerton are shared by the members, by the employees of the company, Swinnerton or Timberlab. And so what that means is that we're not beholden to a group of shareholders someplace that might drive decisions by the company that we're not party to. Instead, the company makes money, and the employees share in those profits. One person in the company cannot own more than 3% of the total share. So that means those profits are distributed among employees, from the vice presidents down to the forklift driver. Like, everybody shares in that, depending on the time that you are in the company. It also means that end of year bonuses are distributed in that way, and that I might not have said this, but part of that is also a 401k match. So you can start working towards your retirement, your nest egg. And again, that's offered to everybody. Yeah. It's not just, people in the upper echelons.
Sure. Yeah, that's really great to know that there's a little bit of that buy-in, maybe, because you're part of the owner for this. So obviously you want it to succeed and do well. And
we talk about that all the time. When we throw away screws, I want them to be in our guys' minds. Like, these are extra screws, we threw them away. Is there a way that we can get this money back? Because that's only money in our pockets.
Right. And a little bit adds up.
It does. Little decisions add up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I also want to mention before we get towards the end of this, and remember, if you have questions, be plugging those in. We're going to get to them in just a few minutes. But can you tell us a little bit about Skills USA? This is something you're getting ready to do, I think, in about 2 weeks.
It is. I'm kind of new to it, but Timberlab has supported this in the past. And we're excited that in 2 weeks we're going to be in Atlanta representing Timberlab at the Skills USA National Championship. And I think what is interesting, if you're familiar with Skills USA, it's kind of a competition for manufacturing at the high school level. And it shows two things. We are invested in the next generation. Like, we really want to see manufacturing kind of bloom back in the United States. And we're proud to be a U.S. manufacturer, if you think about it that way. But the other thing is that we're not afraid to hire straight out of high school. So we will take you right out of high school. We do not need a college diploma. We do not need any kind of degree necessarily. That's great if you've got it, but we don't need that. And we will offer you an opportunity if you've got those skills.
That's great. So I'm guessing then that they need to be 18 to apply.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's great. And that kind of gets into our next questions, and maybe some of the questions you're typing in there or not. If you are interested in learning more or want to know where to go to apply, the jobs are posted at sctechjobs.com. You can go on there and you'll see all the positions that Ready SC is supporting. Your area director here is Kimberly Proctor. She's fantastic. If you have questions, you can reach out to her as well. Her information's on our website. She'll gladly point you over here to Eric if you have anything, any questions that you need answered that you haven't plugged into the chat yet. So let's go ahead and move on to any live questions that we may have received while we were doing this.
A couple of these are repeats. The first one is, what is the starting pay?
So what is the starting pay is our first one.
Sure. It's somewhere between $17 an hour and $24 an hour. It depends upon the experience and the specific position that you're applying for.
And the shift?
And the shift.
Speaking of shift, can you repeat the shift hours?
Sure. It's from 6 o'clock in the morning until 2:30 in the afternoon, and then from 2 in the afternoon, second shift is from 2 until 10:30. And I do want to caveat that we can work with that. I mean, it's not extremely flexible, but I mean, let's say you have some other obligation on Wednesdays, and you need to make up that time at some other point. That is an exception, but I just want you to apply first. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah, that's good information to have, yeah.
And last question, can you talk about the sustainability aspects of Timberlab? For example, do you replant trees or just anything about sustainability?
Oh, awesome. I love talking about this. We actually are actively engaged in a nonprofit that plants trees in the upstate region of South Carolina. So that's really cool. We do that because those of us who work in the mass timber industry, and especially in Timberlab, we do care about the environment. Like, we could go do construction anywhere, but something about the sustainable aspect of mass timber draws us as an entire company, every employee, I think. So mass timber is more sustainable because it is a carbon capture. It takes, on average, to build a building, 75% less. It has a 75% less carbon footprint to build with mass timber rather than to build with concrete and steel. There's specifics there that we have to talk about, but in general, you can have that in your mind. And that's taking into account the fact that when the building is built, it's holding carbon in rather than eventually in some other process like evaporate or being combusting and going into the atmosphere. So that makes it a very attractive from a sustainability standpoint. It also can drastically reduce your construction time, so that's reduced hauls, traffic on the road, equipment on the job site, kind of contaminating, the atmosphere. And so that's another way that mass timber, a significant way that mass timber is more sustainable.
That's interesting. Yeah.
That's all we have.
All right. If y'all have any questions, you watch this at a later date and time, you can plug your questions in, and someone will get back to you in the comment box and try to address your questions. But if you are interested, please go to sctechjobs.com. The jobs are posted on that website. Again, feel free to find Kimberly Proctor. She's going to be so glad I'm plugging her. But she can help answer any of your questions as well. And then thank you both so much for being here and allowing us to come in and, for shutting everything down for a few minutes so everyone could take lunch and we could have this live with us. Just go ahead and follow us and watch the next one. Thank you, everybody.